Hello, MCU fans! Today we're going to take a look at the Doctor Strange 1978 TV movie to try to figure out what was going on with this thing. I mean, we'll be talking timeline, Easter eggs, and much more. So, lots to discuss. There will be spoilers, but as long as you're okay with that, then let's dive right in and see what we can find out. Don't forget, we have a September contest running all month long. If you subscribe or leave a comment, you could win a book or a steelbook. Best of luck. And we have a membership option with lots of cool perks, so you might check it out in case you're interested. Plus, hang around to the end of the video, and we'll talk about the Doomsday Countdown rewatch on the Discord. All right, so I've been discussing the Marvel, let's call them pre-MCU entries for a while now. Several videos out there, including one that originally got a copyright strike, and I had to load one which had a lot less images from the movie. Boy, they do not want the 1994 Fantastic Four movie to be shown on the internet, even in stills. But yeah, you can check out some of these if you want to see more of the reviews, but today we're going to talk about Doctor Strange. So it's interesting, this TV movie came out at the same time that the Spider-Man and the Hulk shows were on the air. So they probably assumed this TV movie would end up being a pilot for a new show, but it did not quite work out. So all right, let's talk about this thing. Doctor Strange. So the opening credits actually have some pretty creepy, kind of demonic looking images. I mean, this one's not too bad, but this looks like something right out of Rosemary's Baby or something. Eesh, very creepy. So then we head to a nameless dimension, which is basically the dark dimension from the comics, but officially they never call it that in the TV movie. But anyway, we then meet what I can only describe as a vague, sinister-sounding, demony cloud thing. I mean, it's maybe Dormammu, maybe something else, we don't really know. So I've commonly seen it referred to as the Nameless One, so that's what I'm going to use for this review. But anyway, it is talking to someone we do recognize from the comics, and that would be Morgan Le Fay. She is one of his servants, and actually, this actress is pretty famous, Jessica Walter. You might have seen her in Arrested Development. So it's kind of wild to see her, 20, 30 years earlier here in the Doctor Strange movie. And really, she was the best part of the TV movie, to be honest. But anyway, it turns out that 500 years ago, she failed to defeat Earth's sorcerers, and that's why the Nameless One and Morgan are trapped here in the Dark Dimension. But the Nameless One says, now the main sorcerer, who's named Thomas Lindmer, is old and must pass on his mantle to a new apprentice. So I don't know why they didn't just call him the Ancient One. I mean, that's the role he's serving from the comics, basically training Doctor Strange. But anyway, Thomas Lindmer is his name. And notice, if you take Lindmer and flip it around, maybe it's a play on Merlin. I mean, the extra D, kind of got to forget that. But that's my guess, is they were trying to be cute and called him Lindmer instead of Merlin. But anyway, he basically says, hey, Morgan, you have 3 days to accomplish your task, because within 3 days, Lindmer will be training his apprentice, a la Doctor Strange. So, okay, that basically the entire TV movie happens over the span of 3 days. So, he explains Lindmer lives in a location with this symbol on it. And of course, we recognize that image, right? I mean, that's the main window of the Sanctum Sanctorum. Although they never refer to it as that in the TV movie. I mean, they use a lot of imagery from the comics, but not a lot of the names. Kind of wild. But we do meet someone directly from the comics, and that is his loyal servant, Wong. So Lindmer explains to Wong about Morgan Le Fay, basically says she is the Dark Queen of Sorcerers, and she is coming after him. So it is very important that Wong goes to find Stephen Strange so the initiation, basically him training his apprentice, can begin. And he explains, you will know it's Stephen Strange when you find someone wearing this ring. We'll talk more about that ring in a minute, but that's Wong's mission. Go and find Stephen Strange. Well, it turns out that Stephen is a psychiatrist at the East Side Hospital. Now notice, not a surgeon, but a psychiatrist. But actually, that becomes really important to the plot, which must be why they changed his medical profession. Even stranger, though, is this person over on the side there working with a doll. So I'm pretty sure what's going on is that many of the patients at this psych ward are basically allowed to walk around randomly. We see them in several scenes just standing against a wall. It's kind of wild. Anyway, we do see that he is indeed Dr. Stephen Strange, so that's directly out of the comics, and it turns out he's quite the player, because he has a conversation with this cute nurse, whose name is not Christine. That would have been really cool if it was, but anyway, he talks to this cute nurse about a date that he had the previous night, and then he immediately starts to hit on her. I think it's fine for doctors and nurses to fall in love, he says, and she says falling in love wasn't the question, it was making love. Ooh, just hilarious dialogue from the 70s, right? Although, honestly, this dude would be totally canceled today if he said any of this stuff to people. Definitely pre-Me Too movement. But anyway, let's talk a little bit about the weather outside. It looks to me like it's maybe springtime because everything is very green, but notice that people are wearing very heavy clothing. Here again, we see a lot of greenery. Here we see a lot of greenery. In fact, this is right in front of the Sanctum Sanctorum. And notice some of the trees, though, just seem to be getting their leaves. So we'll talk more about the timeline later, but for now, it's feeling like it's springtime. All right, so then this is hilarious to me. Morgan is actually taking a cab. I don't know why that's so funny, but like the most powerful evil villain in the show is riding in the back of a cab. And then this kid is making weird faces at her. And she uses then what I can only describe as powerful stare magic. Like she legit just stares at him and they play some funky music in the background. And he's like, okay, I'm out of here. I'm gone. Bye. So they will use this stare magic quite often. I mean, it's a cheap special effect, right? Just stand there looking at the camera and boom, magic happens. All right, so then it turns out that Morgan wants to use the body of Clea Lake. Yes, you definitely recognize Clea, although she has not at all the same background of Clea from the comics. But anyway, she is going to take over her mind, and to do it, she uses that powerful stare magic trick and basically just stares at her through a reflection, and sure enough, Clea is now entranced. So we'll come back to her in just a minute, but now Morgan runs into Lindmer, and they engage in a staring contest. A whole lot of staring going on in this TV special. But anyway, then Morgan uses her magic to vanish. Yep, just like that. She's gone. And instead, she sends in Clea, right? And Lindmer has no reason to suspect this sweet girl is going to do anything. I mean, certainly not, chuck him off a bridge. Oh, my word. She just throws him off the bridge, right? And then she has a panic attack because obviously she was under mental control when she did that. It was not her choice to do that. So she screams and boy, man, help, I've fallen and I cannot get up, right? I mean, that dude landed on his back and his head. Surely he's dead, right? Surely he's not going to just get up and walk away. What? Like no blood, nothing. Just a bad knee, a bad hip. Very bizarre. Very, very bizarre. But also it is worth noting, once again, everybody is wearing very warm clothing. Again, really feels like spring. So when the dude gets around the corner, he uses his magic to heal his hip. That's some pretty awesome magic. I could use some healing magic sometimes. But anyway, he gets home, and now he tells Wong he's met this Clea person, and she needs help. She needs to be protected because Morgan has, entranced her, taken her over. So he then draws this really impressive sketch to say, this is the girl. We need to find her and protect her. I mean, wow, when the dude gives up being Sorcerer Supreme, he has a new gig. Start drawing people's portraits in the park, right? Anyway, we now see that Clea is having nightmares and doing a lot of running in those nightmares, but basically running away from Morgan. But what we then find out is Steven is having the same nightmares, right? He is now psychically linked with Clea. He doesn't know who she is, but he's having those same nightmares. All right, so then conveniently, she checks herself into the hospital, of course, the psych ward, which is where Dr. Strange works. So now we see why it's important that he was a psychiatrist, right? And then when he sees her, he recognizes her from his dreams, and he immediately wants to try to help her. But unfortunately, she can't remember anything about the incident. In fact, she even says, someone threw this old dude off a bridge. She doesn't even realize it was her. So yeah, he doesn't know what to do to help her, but as he walks out of the room with her in it, notice who's standing guard outside. That is Morgan Le Fay. And of course, she vanishes whenever anybody looks at her. So very, very convenient magic to have. Meanwhile, we have Lindmer, who is locking up the sanctum, and I love this. He uses his magic, right, to cast a spell and protect it from, evildoers like Morgan. And, 70 special effects are terrible, but still, that was kind of cool. But notice also the 22 on the door. We'll talk more about that in just a second. But yeah, Lindmer is heading off to meet with Steven and also to check on Clea. But let's look at this address. I think this is interesting. The street seems to say Greenwich Street. I mean, it's a little blurry, I realize. And then he's going to give a business card to Steven in a minute. We'll get to that in a second. But notice the address is 22 Bleecker Court. So it's kind of weird. I guess it says Greenwich, but really it's Bleecker. I don't know. That's really confusing because in the comics, it's 177A Bleecker Street in Greenwich Village. So it seems like they kind of got everything confused. I mean, they went with 22 Bleecker Court, even though it looks like it's on Greenwich Street. So anyway, they tried. All right, so Lindmer and Wong have now left, and Morgan is staking out the sanctum. She knows she needs to break into there to set a trap for Lindmer, but she's a little nervous about approaching, so she actually hypnotizes a cat and sends it in to figure out what's going on. And sure enough, notice the spell is protecting it, and the cat even gets zapped. So poor cat. It doesn't die, it runs away, but it is not a happy camper. Meanwhile, we see them discussing that Clea should probably be sent to Bellevue Hospital. Of course, Bellevue does exist in the comics, and its first appearance was in Daredevil 160 when Bullseye is sent to Bellevue. And also, Bellevue does exist IRL in New York. So, Lindmer shows up at the hospital trying to see Clea, but he isn't allowed. She's not allowed to have any guests. And by the way, I just want to point out, how annoying is it that they're blocking the date intentionally with this lamp? As a timeline guy, that's just driving me crazy. In fact, here's a close-up they show later. That is intentional, darn it. They do not want us to know the date. Anyway, this is crazy. So, Lindmer legit does a Jedi mind trick. I mean, I'm serious. The whole finger-waving thing and everything that Obi-Wan does, and looks at the nurse, and he says, "This is an unusual situation. I have pertinent information about the girl." And you can tell she's totally being entranced, right? So she heads to the head nurse and says, "This is an unusual situation. He has pertinent information about the girl." Then Lindmer heads to talk to this head nurse, who also won't let him in, so he does the finger-wavy thing again and says, "May I come in?" And she's like, "You may come in." I mean, what on earth, right? Now, granted, this is 1978, so Star Wars had just come out. Everybody was talking about it. That's probably why they were doing this, but it just was hilarious that he's doing the Jedi mind trick with his magic. Okay, whatever, right? Whatever. All right, so after checking in on Clea, he goes to pay a visit to Steven and explains you're not going to be able to help her. She's been taken over by an evil force. Of course, Steven's like, evil, good, what are you talking about? So he hands him his business card. Notice that's where we get the 22 Bleecker Court, and says basically, if you want help, come and see me, because you're not going to be able to fix this on your own. And then Lindmer ends the discussion by handshaking with Steven and seemingly casting some type of weird spell. I say weird because Lindmer was clear. I'm not going to force my help upon you. You need to come and willingly ask for it. And then he still casts this strange spell. So that was kind of odd. Nonetheless, Steven then discovers that Clea has fallen into a coma, and he is desperate. He wants to help her and has no idea what to do. So Steven decides, okay, fine, I'll go see the old dude to see what he can do to help Clea. And it turns out Lindmer knew Steven's father, and in fact, knew why Steven had this ring, because Steven's father somehow knew that Steven was going to become a magician and gave him this ring so that when he's old enough, Lindmer would seek him out to become his apprentice. I mean, it was a really, really strange backstory. But nonetheless, it is now time for Steven to level up. And yeah, he's shocked. I love it. He gets this perplexed look on his face. In fact, that's the look on his face throughout a lot of the TV movie, but it just zooms in on him as he realizes, I'm going to become Sorcerer Supreme? Oh my. So Lindmer says, to help Clea, you need to take a trip to the Astral Plane. Yeah, legit, Steven has no magical experience at this point, but he's going to be sent to the Astral Plane to retrieve Clea. Oh my. And to help him out, Lindmer gives him one key spell. If you have run into any trouble, you say, in the name of Real, Scourge of Demons, I command you, be gone. So I could not find any reference to Real in the comics. Let me know if I missed it. But anyway, he now heads to the Astral Plane. That was so funky looking, right? I mean, I know special effects are terrible in the 70s, but this was kind of cool, actually, as he headed in to the Astral Plane, and sure enough, Morgan Le Fay is waiting for him. But she decides not to attack him herself, and we'll learn more about that in a minute. Instead, she decides to send the demon Balzaroth after Steven. And he's pretty cool looking, I'll be honest. Once again, I do not think he is from the comics. I think he's a new creation for this TV movie. So now, Steven finds Clea, just floating around in the Astral Plane, right? Grabs her hand, and he's ready to lead her home when suddenly Balzaroth attacks, right? And he, looking menacing on his horse. And sure enough, Steven uses the one spell he was given, in the name of Real, Scourge of Demons, I command you, be gone. And sure enough, it works. Balzaroth is gone. And Steven is able to get out of there as they once again go through their little funky trip through the Astral Plane. and he is able to return Clea's soul into her mortal body, and sure enough, she is saved. Meanwhile, the Nameless One wants answers for Morgan's failure. What happened? How did you allow him to escape? Well, she explains the truth. I am still a woman, and the man attracted me. Like, wow, Steven is such a player. Everybody's attracted to Steven. But the Nameless One is having nothing to do with this, right? He turns Morgan into, well, a caveman in a wig, I guess? No, he ages her up to what age she would have been if he had not kept her young, and says, would any mortal man desire you if he saw you thus? So yeah, Morgan realizes, I got one more chance to fix this before the Nameless One is done with me. So now we see that Clea is healthy and happy again, doesn't remember anything that happened, which is just as well. And Steven goes to tell Lindmer he does not want to accept his offer, does not want to become Sorcerer Supreme. But on the way out, Steven sees a cat, and it's raining, so he lets the cat in and then closes the door. Not a good idea, right? Because, yep, those are the cat's eyes as it slowly grows and turns into Morgan. The only reason she could get in, of course, is because Steven let her in, which let her avoid the protection spell. So then Wong goes in to try to fight her and puts up a pretty good fight, right? But in the end, he loses. And that doesn't look good, right? He's going to live, don't worry, but that does not look good. And then Morgan takes on Lindmer himself. And actually, for an old dude, Lindmer's doing pretty good. He's pretty powerful. But unfortunately, it's not enough. Morgan is able to defeat him. However, she realizes she cannot kill him. So because she can't kill him here on Earth, she calls upon Asmodeus. She says, come, Asmodeus, Prince of Hell, come and take him into our domain. And sure enough, Asmodeus shows up. First we see him in silhouette, and then we see his menacing face. That really looks nasty, right? And he is actually from the comics. In fact, he first appeared in Ghost Rider number 53. So while poor Lindmer is being carted off to the dark dimension, Steven meets Clea for a date. Oh my word. And guess who shows up? Yep, it's Morgan herself, still hot after Steven, right? So seeing Morgan actually sends Clea into shock, but Morgan says, hey, I will leave Clea alone if you, Steven, will come with me. So he takes up her invitation and they head to the dark dimension, right? Which once again looks really funky and trippy. But anyway, she basically says, I will give you anything you desire. I will give you power. And that's why I think we see the world back there. She's like, I will give you wealth. I'll give you a new outfit. I mean, look at this outfit she gives him. That's pretty funky looking. I love the chains, very 70s, right? She says, I will give you everything you want, including me. So, yep, he goes in for a kiss and probably would have gone in for even more. But then she pushes things a little bit too far and tells him he needs to take off the ring first. So yeah, now he's getting a little suspicious about this whole thing, and I'm not sure why she thought this was a good idea, but she took him to see what happened to Lindmer, basically to say, this is how powerful I am and how powerful you could become. Well, that doesn't help because now he decides to fight her, and honestly, he should not have been able to beat her. In fact, I don't think he does beat her. I think it's the ring that actually ends up protecting him, I guess. They don't make it real clear, but somehow he defeats Morgan. And sure enough, he and Lindmer now return back to the real world. So that was crazy. How did he defeat Morgan, for crying out loud? Anyway, Morgan is also furious. Can't believe that she lost. So she screams out some names you'll recognize from the comics. She says, I am Kali, goddess of destruction. And you can see her image from the comics there. She says, I am Lilith, queen of the demons and of the flesh. And obviously Lilith has been around for a long time. And then she says, I'm Ishtar, bloody Ishtar, who's also from the comics. And she finishes by saying, and I am Morgan. Well, she can rant all she wants, but the Nameless One is not pleased. You have messed up, you lost again, and the 3 days have now passed. Stephen Strange is going to become the apprentice, so you, Morgan, you're going back to looking like a caveman in a wig. Man, that's just not right, huh? And then she's just screaming. As they leave her there, she's screaming to the wind. And it's honestly pretty creepy and dismal. I actually felt a little sorry for her, just a little bit. But anyway, back in the real world, we see that Wong now wakes up. He is okay. And he goes in to help Lindmer to his feet. And Lindmer tells Steven, guess what? I was actually okay the whole time. This was just a test to see if you could rise to the challenge. And Steven's face says it all, right? Dude, seriously, why did you do that to me? That ain't right. But yeah, look again at his outfit. I think that's a pretty jazzy outfit. We're going to see his superhero outfit, which is coming in just a second, is nowhere near as cool as this one. So Morgan hooked him up a lot better than the ancient one. But anyway, now you can see from his face, he's ready to go. I am ready to accept my new role. And then sure enough, someone, and they don't say in the TV movie who this is, but I'm guessing this is the actual ancient one, basically speaks through the window, light comes in the window saying, he's ready. He's ready to begin. So it's the ancient one or it's God, one of the two. But anyway, this weird looking white square thing comes out of the ground, and now Steven gets his new outfit. I mean, really? That is your superhero outfit? I mean, compare the two. Which would you rather walk around town in? Well, okay, I wouldn't want to walk around town in either. The one on the left just looks so cheap to me. But anyway, the transmutation now begins, and Lindmer's powers are all given over to Steven. So he doesn't have to go through any training. He's just given magical abilities. All right, why not? And then it looks at first like Lindmer has been weakened, but Wong says, nope, he'll recover. All will be well. So Steven now heads back to his day job at the hospital, and Clea is there waiting for him. So they decide to, quote-unquote, go for a walk, although she's a little nervous about calling it a date since she's a patient of his, and he says, nope, you're not a patient anymore. You are cured. So, all right, dating is now definitely on the table. But as they go for their walk, we see a news story about the brand new Fey Method. And sure enough, it's Morgan Le Fay herself explaining that, quite simply, it unlocks the hidden potential within you. It's a way of realizing your own powers and using them to get what you really want out of life. Okay, what is going on? Zero explanation for how she's suddenly young again, no longer a caveman with a wig, and she's invented this new method which now is so famous it's on the news. No explanation whatsoever for how this happened, right? So you might think, oh, there's been a time jump. No, because we then see Clea and Steven out for their walk, and she sees on the TV this news story. Now, luckily, she doesn't remember anything, so she just looks at it and says, that's really dumb. And honestly, it is really dumb because we don't know how Morgan got away. So I'm assuming if this had been picked up as a TV show, we would have got some explanation, but still, really crazy. But anyway, we get a huge timeline indicator on the news because she concludes the newscast by saying, from the new mall in downtown Manhattan, I'm Agnes Carson for WBIS News. Okay, wow, new mall in downtown Manhattan. So I Googled for any new malls in Manhattan in the 70s, and the only one was the original mall at the World Trade Center, which opened underground at the World Trade Center Concourse in 1975. Now, they don't tell us the month. I looked everywhere, but I could not find the month it was opened, but this has to be the mall. There were no other major malls opened in Manhattan in the 70s. Also notice that she says the new mall. All right, so that is really helpful because while there's no set rule for how long you can call a mall newly opened, notice they say common business and marketing practices suggest a window of about 6 months to a year, which makes sense. After a year, you're not really going to call it a new mall. So we'll come back to this, but yeah, this is huge. Okay, so the final scene is Steven on his walk as he runs across a magic act in the park, and this dude is about to pull something out of this handkerchief. Well, Steven kind of smiles and puts his hand behind his head and does a little bit of magic, and instead of a bouquet coming out, it's a live dove. And the dude's like, huh? Oh, okay, I'm better than I thought. And everybody's applauding. And Steven's like, yeah, this is going to be fun. This is definitely going to be fun. So then he looks up to the sky, dreaming of his new adventures. Of course, the pilot wasn't picked up, so there are no new adventures, but still, he was hopeful. He was very hopeful. And that transitions into the end credits, which, by the way, the closing credits do have a really nice call out. The consultant was Stan Lee. And in interviews, he said he really enjoyed working on this because he was indeed consulted, and that's why a lot of these references from the comics did show up in the show. All right, so now let's talk about when this movie happens in the timeline. So remember, we saw a lot of the trees looking kind of springy, getting their green leaves. We saw people still wearing cold clothes, which feels like spring. And then we were told there was a new mall in Manhattan, And of course, that mall was opened sometime in 1975. So, okay, I'm just going to put this in spring of 76. Now, that keeps us within a year of the mall opening, but tries to get us as close as we can get to the launch of this show, which was September of 78. So, yeah, pretty wild. I did not imagine this was going to be in 76, but I don't know what else to do with it. So I've now added it to the Google Timeline document, which of course is sorted by timeline month and year, but you can sort by release if you want by going up to do the sort, and you can also filter, and if you choose multiverse, then sure enough, you get all of these different multiversal shows and movies, and in fact, you can see Doctor Strange 1978 came out September 78, but has the timeline year of April of 76. And of course, here's the list of all of these different multiversal films and shows. Here's Doctor Strange. And by the way, these are the years things came out, not their timeline years. So I've covered everything here, and you can check them out in that playlist. And then here's the rest of them, and I've covered almost everything on this page. So over time, I'll try to get to everything. And again, you can check these out on a new playlist that I have, and I'll leave a link to that in the description, as well as a link to the movie if you want to watch Doctor Strange. So let me know, what did you think about this crazy TV movie? Honestly, the biggest issue I had with it, it was just boring. The story was okay, but man, it's an hour and 33 minutes, but it felt like it could have been about 20 minutes, and that would have been long enough. So anyway, let me know your thoughts. You know I love to read and respond to everything. And don't forget, we have that September contest. Be a subscriber, leave a comment, win a book or a steelbook. And there's the membership option in case you're interested in that. And I always love to mention the Discord. Here we are in the Timelines chat, trying to figure out how everything fits together. Plus, I promised I would talk about the Doomsday Countdown rewatch. Every day listed here. We'll watch a different movie or show at 7 p.m. Eastern as we prepare for the December 18, 2026 release of Doomsday. So we have 2,400 members across the globe, conversations 24/7, and I'll leave a pinned comment so you can join. Also, if you don't mind, like this video, subscribe if you haven't already. You can check out more content, and we'll all continue to enjoy the ever-growing, the ever-changing Marvel Cinematic Universe.